4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, January 29th, 2023. I'm Larry Rhodes, or DJ Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Hey, I'm the Wombat. What's up?
Everything, all of us. Guests today are Dread Pirate Higgs from Western Canada. WOZO all the way from Kentucky.
Hey.
Hello. And John Richards from London, well, south of London, I believe, England.
South coast, Houston.
Sounds good.
London's that way, in the north, 50 miles.
Cool. That way doesn't work real well on the radio, but otherwise. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. If you get the feeling that you're the only non-believer in your town, well, I'm betting you're just not. Here in Knoxville, in the middle of the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us, and that's just one town. We're the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK. And if you'll stick around till after the break, we'll tell you more about it then. Wombat, what's our topic today?
Okay, and I'm saying this as input from the questions, but why don't Christians jump off a cliff? And then, like, it's not and then it's more of a thoughtful answer of like, hey, why don't they actually do that if the afterlife is better? But listen, we can get into it. Hey, what's up, Dad? 5? I see you.
I was going to answer the question, but
he's excited.
Yeah,
but we're
I'm
going to
ready.
go into, before we get too excited, let's go into our weekly invocation, then check on how everyone's doing, and then we can jump into the meats.
All right. Our noodly Lord, who art in a colander, al dente be thy noodles, thy blood be rum, thy sauce be yum, with meat as it is with vegetables. Give us this day our garlic bread, and forgive us our cussing, as we forgive those who cuss against us. And lead us not into ketoism, but deliver us some carbs. For thine are the meatballs, and the sauces, and the grog, whenever and ever.
And guys, it's been a really, really nice Saturday. First sunny weekend day in this whole month. Got it out of our system, and now we're back to the doom and gloom of the return of winter. So we'll have probably 2 more snows where we're at right now. Dread, you know snow. You've been
Right.
born in snow. Snow is in your blood. But for us, it's like, oh, it'd be nice if we could have something other than overcast and ice falling out on the ground.
That's
Or
why I
worse.
need rum in my blood to keep the snow at bay.
and a freeze.
Right. So let's do a check-in before we ask the question about why Christians don't they just jump off a cliff, and fall into the greater theme of today's questions, which is cognitive dissonance. Dread, how you been?
I've been well, actually. Just in this last week, I've been contacted by our prophet, Bobby Henderson.
Nice.
And we're moving forward with the expressions of interest for a developer of a app for pastafarians. And it's one of these things that you strictly opt in, anonymity, but
Okay.
you can identify amongst other pastafarians, like Signal or Telegram or something like that. But
And
for
what is this
pastafarians.
app called? Please give me the best name ever.
Well, I'm not the one that's going to come up with a name myself, so that's still under consideration. And it depends, I guess, on what its ultimate functionality is. But it'll have something to do with like noodles or something.
Is it pastafarians?
Pastafarians?
Pastafarians.
Pasta. I don't know.
At least put it on the list.
Yeah,
Boudreaux,
that's a little hard to get around the tongue there. So I'm sure we'll come up
and
with something.
pastafarians is? I always thought, okay, all right. That's fair. Boudreaux, speaking of things to get hard across the lips, how have you been, my friend?
Boudreaux, hard to spell too. I've been well. I've been I moved my exercise schedule around to be able to join today, and excited to be here. And
Yeah, good
Nice.
to see you, man.
Orange Fitness
Well,
today?
welcome.
Orange Fitness?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Very, very cool to have you. Let us know So you are a big movie buff. What's the latest movie that you've actually gone to see?
Well, just last night I watched You People,
Nice.
which was really, really entertaining.
Yeah, I saw the ad for that.
Yeah. We were gonna go see Avatar in the theater and just got busy this weekend, so we may still do that. But other than that, I can't think of the last movie I saw.
Yeah, here's my thing. I just recently saw Suburbicon based on
Yeah.
recommendations.
I told you guys about that.
Same vein as You People, but also not, because the racial commentary tree is in the backdrop. It colors what is much more, in my opinion, a really, really fascinating dark comedy in the foreground. And when I saw that movie, I was like, this is really good, because it's taking for granted how people were back there by just saying, hey, everyone's racist, but bad stuff is going to happen. Don't worry, because more or less everyone is. It's just like, it was so good.
Yeah.
And it never was like called out or pointed out as like a bad thing. It's just, it was what it is, but here's this other story that's in this world. And so when I saw it, I thought, what a great depiction of it, because, you know, it so often things get so melodramatic, and there's like, has to be some cool thing where there's one white neighbor who's here to help out and all this stuff's like, no, it's not about them, it's about this terrible family. And when I went to see the reviews, what I was unfortunate to find out was like, nobody got the joke, or nobody liked that.
Right.
And right. And so there's nothing more frustrating than watching a good movie that you think is good and then finding out that nobody else liked that movie. And I think that's how cult followings begin. And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
there's a whole realm of them, and to believe it or not, Bujo has a whole wallpaper at Pantheon of like all of the cult movies where, like, Hangover, it came out, nobody liked it, but the people who liked it did like it, and they supported it, and they kept coming up with new ones and stuff like that. So that's how you start religions, that's how you start cults. Great show to talk about that. John Richards, how you been?
Well, that sounds like Star Trek, which was a flop in the beginning and then developed into a cult. Anyway.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway, I've been fine, which is, you know, I like to wake up every morning. So far, it's successful. But I made a lovely Atheism UK podcast this morning, because we have some issues going over here. And one of our friends has been deplatformed because he got an item onto the agenda of one of our local committees for religious education, and it was about assemblies, because a 1944 law in this country, and bear in mind that we're not a secular country constitutionally, we are a Church of England, you know, religious country, which is ridiculous, because of course
you're on the downhill side
like
of
Canada,
religious awakening.
Yeah, just like Canada.
Technically.
Yeah, this anachronistic law specifies that at school, every pupil has to meet once a day, all of them together in an assembly, and have a Christian religious worship. And of course, most of the schools ignore this. But nonetheless, it's on the statute book, and we're campaigning to get rid of it.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, it was just
And I hope
like
it's
in
more popular.
Canada. It was only in 1978 that blasphemy laws were taken off the books.
Yeah.
Right. I'd also like to, you know, in a non-religious sense, I also like to see Pledge of Allegiances just go away too in America.
Yeah.
There's no real need for
You
that.
can't force somebody to make a pledge. It's coercion. They wouldn't stand up anyway.
Exactly. Like, let's think about what that actually means. Doubter 5, since we hate America, how you been?
We hate America. No, we don't. Oh, I'm fine. I got a new graphics card so that I can play Star Citizen better.
Nice.
And it's working fine. And
Okay.
I've got a new, what do you call it? Devotee in Dread. He's playing it now too.
We've been hanging out
really?
together on the
Awesome.
starships.
So you guys are like space engineers together then?
That's right.
More like combaters.
Yeah.
Combat
Okay.
soldiers.
Problem makers.
Pilots. Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Man, that's awesome. So who would imagine when you were born you'd be virtual simulated space pirate?
Or a computer programmer, because I was born in 1950.
Yeah. Think of this world. What a great book. All right. We're going to go into some listener comments. The aspect of today's show or general theme is cognitive dissonance. And we talked about in Discord, what questions would you guys have for a group of atheists or for religious people? And the first question that we had was, why don't religious people just jump off a cliff? Pause. Actually, that's a really good point because they believe the afterlife is better than the life that we're in right now. So why don't they jump off a cliff? Doubter 5, you're excited, so go for it.
Well, it would make sense, yes, of course. But the church found out pretty early on that that's not a good idea, so they made it a sin.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, they would lose memberships and they wouldn't get their tithes anymore, so they made it a sin. So that the last thing you did was commit suicide, you'd go to hell. So,
how about presumably you could help your friend by pushing them off the cliff?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You
There
don't
you
see
go.
them like just ignoring safety, though. I mean, you'd think that if they thought they would live forever, like they profess to do,
Yeah.
that they would, shoe safety belts, looking both ways when they walk into traffic,
Sure.
because what difference does it make? Wouldn't you rather reside in heaven than here on earth with all the pain?
Right.
But they don't do that, do they? They seem to know better at some level.
Well, help me out. My mom's a Jehovah's Witness. She doesn't accept blood transfusions, and
Right.
that could actually go to save her life. Is that considered one of those loopholes where it's like, oh, I need a blood transfusion, and if I don't get one, I go to the afterlife, or I'll party with God and Jesus forever?
I don't have
no,
an
thank
answer
you.
to that. I don't know why they would do that. There's nothing in the Bible that I know of. Of course, they could probably tell you why they don't, according to the Holy Scriptures.
Yeah.
But to me, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Bujo, what's up?
So I had to pull up the book on my app, but why there is no God: simple responses to 20 common arguments for the existence of God. It's by Armin Navabi. I don't know if anyone's ever read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong here, John. The kind of the intro to the book was him. I think he's Muslim, and he was talking about how he jumped off the roof of a building to try to commit suicide because he was so terrified of not getting into heaven, and that there is a loophole in their religion that if you're under the age of 13 or whatever it was, 14, you'd automatically go to the good place. And he didn't die and recovered, and then found his way toward atheism and wrote an excellent book. But it is, to me, that's frightening. And yeah.
I mean, that's another thing. Even in mainstream Christianity in America, there's a common belief that if you're below like 7 years old, that you automatically go to heaven. And Andrea Yates took that to the logical conclusion and killed 5 of her children in one afternoon.
Yeah.
They were talking about that.
Yeah, you can go on Google and look up Andrea Yates for the full story.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And the Catholics, of course, have an answer to unbaptized babies. They go to the guff or whatever it's called.
Actually, that's been abolished.
Yeah.
I understand. But they nevertheless had come up with something, right?
Right.
They did.
Yeah.
Wow. Discord was talking about Andrea Yates as well. They were bringing that up as a example of a woman who drowned all 5 of her children in a bathtub.
In the bathtub, one after
Yeah, just to make sure that they would go to heaven, just so they get through that loophole, right, in an evil world. Dread, there's another comment. Oh, it's actually to me. Jehovah's Witnesses don't accept blood because they are told that humans must not sustain their life with another creature's blood, which includes other people, and that's why it's unholy.
I'd like to get the scriptural references on that if they're listening and can
Would it
supply
matter?
some
Would
of
it
them.
matter?
No, I'd like to look it up and see what the actual wording is.
Okay.
And what's funny is I was talking to a Christian earlier this week on Facebook, and I quoted a scripture to her, and she said, "Well, you can't take it literally." And that was pretty much end of the conversation.
That's great. That's great. John,
I should not take God's unerring word, for, I should go to a human to interpret it.
we live in a weird, zany twilight zone. It really is. John Richards, why don't Christians just jump off a cliff?
Well, Dred's right. They made it a sin. And probably, or was that you, Larry? And probably because they don't want to reduce their congregation. They want to expand it. It's a business after all.
It is.
But what I think we should add to this conversation, the fact that heaven is actually a gay club in Charing Cross, London. And I've not been there. But,
A gay nightclub?
Yes, yes. But I've not been there, but I think that it might not be so unreal as they like to imagine. But the interesting thing here is what is and what isn't suicide, because one of you raised the point that you could deny medication, and whilst you wouldn't actually be positively, while you wouldn't actually be positively killing yourself, you would be sort of negatively killing yourself. So is that suicide, or is that just, allowing nature's way?
It's suicide by negligence.
Yeah. Well, is it suicide by negligence? Okay, there must be a courtroom.
Smoking cigarettes, eating poorly, not exercising.
Smoking cigarettes and drinking Captain Kangaroo.
I'd love to see the after work evening ABC special where it's just courtroom in heaven, where they're just like, yeah, you're here, but did you kind of kill yourself? Did you conspire to commit suicide? There's a thing here. And then when they go through the pearly gates.
Well, it's a very grey area now. You've raised all sorts of things like not taking enough exercise. Ooh.
Yeah. So Discord is asking, do you guys think that like not wearing your safety belt or taking medicine, seatbelts, or taking medicine count as ways to increase your chances to go in heaven? And why aren't those taken more often? And maybe that's why anti-vaxxing is so
I was going to say that, that isn't anti-vaxxing is just like not wearing a seatbelt, and then isn't that passively exposing yourself to an early death, which by virtue of that would be suicide by negligence.
Let's go, Boudreaux.
As the resident traffic engineer on the call, I have to step in and say we've actually demonstrated that people that don't wear their seatbelt actually incur a burden, a cost on society
by
sure. That's the same thing with motorcycles and helmets.
Helmets, and then you could make the same argument with vaccines too. Fewer people vaccinated. So that one's tricky. They're trying to get more people into to die prematurely.
Yeah,
but
I was good. If I may add to Boudreaux's comment. A part of that anti-vaxxing, which is a real thing that you can see, is how it overburdened the hospitals, and that's what they were afraid of, and of course people who don't vax end up in hospital, straining the system, costing everybody who needs,
making more people sick,
and those who really need the services don't get them because it's clogged up with all these other people.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing, because if we're going down this suicide by negligence route, there's a number of avenues, isn't there? I mean, there's not eating well, there's not taking enough exercise, there's smoking, there's drinking excessively, so on and so forth. Is it possible that there's a cumulative effect? How many of these negligences adds up to one suicide?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Great comment,
It should be charted on an Excel spreadsheet.
True.
Yes.
True.
There's a really good follow-up comment that was just posted on Discord saying that Jesus Christ as a human sacrifice is in its own right an example of a suicide, where he had multiple opportunities to say, hey, if I just stop being a jerk, excuse the colorful language, I won't have to kill myself on the cross. Yet he knew he was going to do it. He knew that it was a plan, and he did it anyway. That's the example of premeditated suicide.
It's willful negligence.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, are we getting close to the end of the break? Down to 5. What do you think?
No, we still got another good 5 minutes for the break.
All right. I got a good comment from The Plug who says, Christianity, this is a comment as a feedback to John Richards, is in fact a business. You can tell because they don't have a single package deal. It's always a subscription service. You can't just do a one-stop payment and be like, I'm done, I'm good for the rest of my life. You have to go to church. He says it's literally called service.
He's right. Yes.
Well,
It's not a product, it's a service.
Well, not only that, but the Bible tells you in 1 Peter 3:15 that you got to go out and spread the word. I mean,
Right.
you got to do it if you're
Yes.
talking about things you have to do for the Bible.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's not like
Yeah.
God will do it for you.
Well,
Okay.
what I want is for the governments to recognize that it's a business and start taxing them.
Oh,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're all parasites on the rest of society. We have to support them through our taxes.
Yeah.
right. Good comment on that. There's private schools that are often filled with rich people who benefit other rich people because the schools get property taxes that go to that school, whereas poorer neighborhoods do not. Poor neighborhoods are loaded with churches that don't pay property taxes, and so they are essentially a money sink for education.
Yeah.
It's worse in other countries. In countries like Nigeria, which desperately needs some welfare and education, in hospitals, and the only rich people in there are the pastors, you know?
Right. Hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Layered.
And don't forget that the vouchers for religious schools directly take government money from regular schools, public schools, to
Yes.
fund religious
Yes.
schools.
Yes.
So
And-
that's a money sink from our educational system.
And tithing. So if you tax 10% of a poor community, their paychecks, that's money that goes literally nowhere. Like, it goes back to feeling false hope. Joy Pirate, what do you got?
Well, I was going to say that that happens a lot in Canada. That a big portion of the public purse for education goes towards religious or schools with religious programming, like Christians and Islamic schools, and also now I can't remember what I was going to say, but
I'll
It'll come
add
from-
on to that. I would say, the idea of cognitive dissonance or cognitive bias also is if you're Christian, you think, well, my church is contributing to the community. Is it, or is it contributing only to other Christians? Right?
Right.
Because you have a building that only satisfies the needs of the people who go to it. And meanwhile, everyone else that needs that property tax or that money or that funding or that support system don't get it unless they subscribe to your dogma, or they build another church down the street and suck
Right.
more money
Yeah.
from the community.
Well,
to
it's
their particular needs.
it's an icon from medieval days to the present. You know, in certain neighborhoods, the nicest building is the church.
right.
The money flows from the community to the church, which builds,
Yeah.
hoards the money or builds the church or whatever. And then
Well-
when you go, when they need money, they come to you. But when you need money, they tell you to go to God.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
It's a great model.
It's a diode.
Over here in the UK, we have laws against discrimination. So what I would like to see is those laws being extended to the usage of faith buildings, so that if on Monday they have a Christian meeting in their hall, on Tuesday they've got to have a Muslim one, and on Wednesday they've got to have a Jewish one, and that applies to all of the different religions.
Or secular ones. They could open it as
Yes.
a community club on
Yes.
certain days of the week.
Yes.
Well,
Back
you know,
up to
they say
the
about
community.
McDonald's that McDonald's is not in the business of selling hamburgers and fries. They're in the real estate business. And that's what religions are when it comes to that thing. They're not saving souls. They're collecting real estate.
That's it. They're making that money. That's what we
Well,
do. We
they're
don't sell a product, we
franchises
make
generally.
money.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, are we getting closer to the bottom?
Yep.
All right, let's take that
sounds
break.
right. Okay. This is Digital Freethought Radio Hour and WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the comments, everybody. I'm sorry for putting you guys on mute. It was hard to follow. I'm talking to the Discord channel. I couldn't follow the conversation and what was going on the live stream. Does anyone have any questions for leading into the second half? And if so, you can just post it inside the chat room group. Okay, they still want to know about schisms. You
Wait, the
didn't
Tool
ask
song?
a question about Catholic saints. I know. I'm going to get there. We have a Catholic on the show right now. Boudreaux's Catholic. He said he'd look it up.
I'm gonna look it up.
Boudreaux, what's your favorite Catholic saint?
I'm looking it up.
And then we're going to do scientists in the next half. We will do scientists in the next half.
Oh, that'll be good.
Why are there religious scientists?
That's a good one.
Have you guys ever heard of the album called Jesus is King? King should be replaced with mid, and Christians are supposed to love everybody, right? And now he's like, okay. Whoa, geez. Talk about Kanye West and his religious tendencies. I don't know.
Like that guy needs more oxygen.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you, guys. Are we all ready to come back to the show?
Yeah.
Okay. We can start the show. We can start the show on cognitive dissonance, going into scientists and why they're religious, and then with free time, we'll touch into Catholics for the funny question for Catholics for Boudreaux, and if anyone wants to feed into why there are schisms or transition to that, I'm totally open to it. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's take just a moment to talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK. We were founded in 2002. We're in our 21st year now, and we have over 1,000 members. We also have weekly in-person meetings every Tuesday evening in Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high top tables, or if it's pretty weather, outside on the deck. We also have a Tuesday evening Zoom meeting. If you'd like to join us, email us for details at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or letschatse@gmail.com. You can also find us online on Facebook, meetup.com, or go to our website at knoxvilleatheist.org, or you can just Google Knoxville Atheist. That'll take you there. Just that simple. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to a meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one?
Start one.
Part
That's right.
one.
Wombat, where do you want to pick up?
Hey, we're going to go more into the cognitive dissonance but first let's check in with Boudreaux. Boudreaux, not to pick on you with your Catholic background, but did you ever have a favorite Catholic saint? The people want to know.
Yes,
And
the people
why-
want to know.
And why is it St. Lucy? Okay, that was the question.
Yeah. So you thought I paid attention way more when I was in Catholic school, Catholic church service, and then some Wednesday night Catholic after school things.
Catechisms.
I wasn't paying attention. We call it CCD. I forget what it stood for. But since I'm a good steward of the internet, I Google searched my favorite saint, which is going to be Saint Agatha.
Okay.
Because apparently she's the patron saint of breast cancer patients, martyrs, rape victims, and others. So how is it a saint? They didn't even know about breast cancer back then, did they?
No
You
doubt.
can make new saints, right? Like that's how it works with the Catholic Church.
Okay.
You can just make new ones. But
Well-
there's one for breast cancer. That's good.
Well, this one apparently, Saint Agatha also invoked against earthquakes, natural disasters, and fires, which to me makes it sound like she's like a bad guy in a video game. So I'm going with Saint Agatha. for the
Okay.
win.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's on the list. Thank you, guys. Plug says thank you. John Richards got a question for you. You are a scientist. I would love to know, why are there religious scientists? So here's the actual question. For real though, if there's any scientists who are religious, I'd like to know how they think the universe started and how that ties in with their beliefs. Why are there religious scientists in the first place?
That's a question that's always puzzled me.
It's just, go ahead.
If you are a scientist, you are working day by day looking for evidence. And there is no evidence for any God whatsoever that's come to my attention anyway. And we've been looking for 2,500 years or so. So
Longer than that.
yeah, indeed. So what happens when is there some sort of, you you know, at the airport, you go through this arch, and they some sort of detection mechanism works out what you're carrying on you, whether you're smuggling, I don't know, guns through or whatever. Do they have one of those at the door to their scientific establishment, so that once they've walked through that, they're cleaned of the need to seek evidence, and they're happy to.
Wouldn't that be great? I would love that in the future to just be like, here's a scanning device that just clears you of all unneeded dogma in your brain, and just frees you from like all these really bad ideas. You go through it and you're like, oh, maybe Ryan Seacrest is a pretty good host. You know, it's like you go through, oh, this is okay. Yeah.
There you go. Because I think something like that must happen. They've got this double personality. They're on the one hand,
partitioning.
Compartmentalizing.
Yeah,
exactly. It was, what was it called? Non-overlapping.
Magisteria.
That's the one. Yeah. So what happens? They've got this compartment in their brain which works on Sundays when they're
Yeah.
Then from Mondays to Fridays, that one's switched off, and the other one's switched on. The rational one is switched on.
I think it was Stephen Jay Gould that came up with that. Yeah. And himself being a scientist and all. A very interesting way to look at it.
When you're saying switching off parts of your brain, when you do like these talks with people, like Larry and Dread Pirate and I have done, you can see it happen. You can see them talk, hey, tell me why you think tectonic plates are a thing. And they'll list off a number of criteria that are all very well substantiated, well researched, not absolutely sure, but altogether make it such that they've met the claim of why are there tectonics, and like very well evidenced. And then you say, like, so then if you have all this evidence for this, why do you believe in a God? And then switch. Well, back when I was in third grade, I had a sore stomach, and I asked my mom to give me a prayer, and it went away, and that proves God exists to me. Like, whoa, look at that. Look at that. The little firing switch. Yeah. Doubter 5, it looks like you want to say. No, go for it, Dread.
Well, I was going to say, talking about calibration, because that's what we often do in Socratic examination, is to calibrate confidence and beliefs. And, sometimes, like you were saying, an example of the tectonic plates, where you could have that conversation with someone and then ask them, well, what is your confidence that is in fact the case? Well, 95%, that's kind of what the evidence is. And then this thing about mom praying for you and curing your stuff, well, 100%. 100%.
Yes.
How could I lower your confidence by 1%? Well, you can't do it.
Nothing.
I'm 100% confident.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation. So you're closed-minded on it. No, I'm not closed-minded. I'm just will never change my mind about it. I'll hear things like that. But listen, what you were saying before, John Richards, was really interesting, because you had this idea of scientists' jobs are finding evidence, and they haven't found evidence for God. The thing is, they found evidence for God. It's just not enough evidence to support a God claim. They have terrible antidotes. My bad. Don't arrest me, John Richards. I'm sorry for pronouncing the C in antidote. But they have personal experience. They have arguments for comfort. They have a book of claims that they believe are true. They have arguments from authority. All of these things do not add up to any worthwhile belief or demonstration of a God existing. Yet they've reduced their criteria to a second standard where they will use that to confirm that a God exists. Whereas for everything else, they have a completely different standard. And so essentially they're operating on a double standard. They found evidence, but they're willing to believe it on that low standard. What do you think?
So they leave their laboratory, and then the bar lowers right down to ankle height.
Correct. Yeah, it's really frustrating. Hey, Dr. Fry, what's up?
Oh, what gets me is when, and I did this myself when I was believer or getting close to non-belief, give me a sign. And anything that out of the ordinary that happens is, quote, a sign from God. And not only just a sign from God, but a sign from that particular God, which supports that particular religion. Like I asked one guy, I told him I was an atheist, and he couldn't believe it. And I said, well, why do you believe it? What convinced you that God was real? He said, well, one day I asked for a sign, and every number I looked at had sevens in it. It was just all over the place. my paycheck, everything, license plates. So that was good enough for him.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's so a shame it's just not a phone call. It's like, oh, I'm God. I exist. By the way, I exist.
Yeah.
That would be at least better than
Yeah.
I found a 7 in the cloud.
Going by that reasoning, obviously 007 is God.
Okay, Dred, what do you think?
Yeah. I was going to say that, like for pastafarians, or for myself as a pastafarian anyway, my pastafarianism is based on the idea that there are unknowable aspects to existence that I will never ever have a solution for, and it serves kind of like as an avatar or as a placeholder where I can celebrate those things without conflict. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, do I believe in a literal flying spaghetti monster? Well, probably not. But you think about quantum entanglement and string theory and the forms of matter inside a neutron star, which are related to forms of pasta. These are all really just as good an explanation as any for those things that we'll never understand fully. And
I see
that's where I place myself.
Pastafarianism is a avatar for a celebration of the unknown and complex.
Yep.
And it is a shrinking unknown because we are figuring things out, but it's so vast that it's like, hey, we'll be here for a while. This unknown thing's gonna be here, but let's just have some pasta and enjoy the fact
Absolutely.
that there's just gonna be some things we won't ever figure out. Isn't that cool though? Isn't that actually interesting? I like that a lot as an approach to it. Boudreaux, I saw your hand. What's up?
Yeah. I like that how you summarize that Pastafarianism though. That's a good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Neil deGrasse Tyson did I saw it on a YouTube video. I'm not sure if it was a lecture or what it was, but he basically he turned the question. A lot of people look at religiosity compared to degrees, in education, and there are X percentage of religious people with bachelor's degrees, let's say, and the percentage kind of drops as you get to higher levels of education. You get into masters and PhD, and it drops even most significantly when you get into the real harder sciences, astrophysics and so on. And so people have said for years, the more advanced degree, the more advanced scientist. Again, in the hard science, nothing against the other sciences, but I think it stands to reason that there's different type of thinking that goes into some of these hard sciences, and those are the ones naturally would reject a God. What Neil deGrasse Tyson did was he looked at the interesting piece is, let's look at the actual religious people that have these advanced degrees. Those are the people worth talking to, studying, interviewing. You will have this advanced degree and you're a huge minority in your field, and because you still believe in a God. Those are the interesting people. So I don't know if there's always been a follow-up to it, but I would be really curious too. And you probably see it, Ty, in your work and field. But you're surrounded by, and I see it sometimes too, and on campus and in engineering, it's like, it surprises me to see someone with a PhD and advanced degree and still,
Right.
Well, the most famous example of this, of course, is Francis Collins.
Yes.
Who he was key person in the Human Genome Project, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But
priest. Yeah.
He was a pure scientist.
Not Collins. No.
No.
Go ahead.
He was a pure scientist who had a revelation when he saw a frozen waterfall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That made him become a Christian.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
And convinced him 100%.
I can show him a bunch of frozen waterfalls right now. You can go on Google. Did he have Google Images back then?
Here's an idea, though. I think we've got Chat GPT.
Oh yeah.
We should ask it. We should ask it. Why are there religious scientists?
Yeah, I can do this. Next meeting, we'll do Chat GPT where we will generate 50 or 10 questions for the show and see how. Ask 10 questions that will stump atheists. How about that? We'll ask Chat GPT to give that to us and see if we can field it.
So this is a new chat box program or something? AI?
It's an
really
AI.
nice
It's state of the art AI.
It is.
So and it's called what? Chat GPT?
It's a step forward. So, quick sidebar. There's things called Turing tests, which is like a really fun. They actually make a competition where you can see on YouTube people competing against each other with robots that they've produced that are made to trick other people that they're actually people or a chat robot. And we've since 2012 have made a chat bot that can actually more than 50% of the time actually convince people that they're actually talking to an actual human being. And companies have been buying those programs and use them for their like customer service operations. So like when you go on Amazon and you think you're talking to a person, maybe from like India or somewhere, it's actually just a robot that's like using the fact that it's foreign to cover up some of the grammatical mistakes that it's making, but it's still just fixing stuff for you automatically. And then finally, they have an open AI, which is basically, hey, anybody can use this. You can go on, it's partially owned by Google or at least sponsored by it, but they're $29 billion owned, privately owned distribution of open software. You can go on ChatGPT, log in, and play around with this computer that will write song lyrics for you, poetry on very, very short prompts. My friend from work said, write a poem about our job, posted it, and we got like this epic odyssey of like everyone about our job, the nature of the work that we do, and it's all in lyrical sense. I'm like, this is scary. This is actually very well done.
It's very scary. Imagine how you'd feel if you're a writer for shows. They could just take.
I'm going to get some new Pastafarian
we
prayers.
need better writers for shows. Most shows are really bad. There's only like one or two good shows a year. We all know that.
Right. Dred, I was going to tell you that most of these chat GPT interactions are all text-based. When you go there, you have to type in and they give it back in text. However, if you go to YouTube, you can find a lot of videos where they have taken the text and run it through an emulator of a person, who's talking the lines and doing the speech so you don't have to read all that stuff. And they also have videos where they have one GPT or one AI talking to another that way. So the conversation is very interesting.
What's really funny is there's a cool point where some of those videos, the two robots are talking to each other, and the other robot's like, are you a chat bot? And the other one's like, yeah, are you a chat bot? It's like, oh, we're both chat bots. And it's like, this is
it is getting really scary. It started back in the Victorian times when they had things called automatons, where the little manicule men figures like robots, but hidden inside was a tiny little man who operated them.
A homunculus.
Answered all their questions. But then, of course, more recently, we've had the Deepak Chopra quote generator. And the chat GPT seems to be the grown-up version of that. But it is amazing. And I'm sure it would pass the Turing test.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, they have given it some exams. It's done some exams, and it's passed. Not top of the class, but it's got middling results, middling grades in I forget which subject areas. But
they can create exams too. You can ask it to create a homework assignment.
Let me throw this out as well. There's high school teams now that can design chat bots that can break the Turing test or get through it. That's only through iterative studies of people working together and not praying or relying on God to fix it, but using skills in software engineering and human understanding to improve and teach generations more adequately so they can more effectively meet these like bars. We are so excited in science because we're constantly coming up with new things. And this is an example of a new thing brought about through the scientific method. Whereas religion is still hashing out the same 46 stories, every 52 stories, I'm sorry. Or sometimes they reuse them. We all know that pastors don't always have a new story to tell. But it's the same yearly worth of stories every single time. It's dyad, and hopefully as a global community, we are understanding that and moving away from religiosity and moving towards this new exciting stuff that science keeps coming out with, because we need more people to contribute to that. More women, females, foreign people, everyone doing it. It proves it, because that's the way how we get better at stuff, with just all these new hands and minds working together on these new projects. I feel like that is the stuff. While scary in some aspects, all new technology was scary. I mean, I remember when we first got our first microwave, that was terrifying. We're like, what in the world? It's not even hot and it's making it hot. What's going on?
And it wasn't called a microwave. It was called a radar range.
Yeah, yeah.
But remember how scary it was when you got like HD cameras for the first time? You're like, wait a second, that's what people see when they see me? I don't like this. We always have these big swings, but in the end, it always tends to improve because we make the quality of life better. I feel like stuff like this could really improve a lot of things. So, yay, science. And go on ahead, Boudreaux. Go on.
Just real quick to tap on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Remember there was a time, well, I don't remember it, but people wouldn't get into an elevator unless it had an elevator operator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I don't remember that, but I am aware of that. Yes, yes. John,
I
what's
miss
up?
those. I miss those.
John, what's
they
up?
they just stood there and said things like "ladies' underwear."
Yes. Menswear for 4.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that I want to plug, because yesterday I had this fantastic guest on Freethought Hour, a very brilliant philosopher type, who we started to talk about the developments in AI. And his opinion is, and I tend to agree with him, that the Turing test is too linguistic, because it would eliminate our own infants as being conscious, just because they can't speak yet.
You know, and there's another aspect there too about AI, is that you never hear one say, you know, I was thinking. You know what I mean?
You mean they don't use superlatives?
It doesn't say, well, I had this idea. Like, AIs don't come up with original ideas, right?
So there you go. Next question for ChatGPT. Have you ever had an idea?
Have you ever had an
Okay.
original idea?
Yeah, we may have to define original, because they can definitely come up with things that are essentially novel just through brute force, right? In the same way that a human being can come up with a new song, they can come up with like a new poem.
Yeah,
they
but
can do
you know,
it.
they wouldn't be able to sit there and say, "Oh, I was thinking about the nature of time, and I developed this new theory about space and the space-time continuum," or something like that. I mean, that's not going to happen.
Oh, that's
I don't
classic
know about
final
that.
last words
No.
by Dread Pirate Hicks. Listen, I can
No.
tell you,
No,
not
there-
ChatGPT, but there's another AI program that I'd like for you guys to check out after this, where it's essentially a prompt and it will make art for you. And it will
Right.
make
I started
art.
to say.
Go on ahead, Dread.
There-
Or go on ahead, Dad.
They already create new songs that didn't
Music
exist, the art that didn't exist, stories that didn't exist. They're you know, you're saying they don't say that I'm thinking, because
Right.
that's all they do.
But
They
like,
think they don't do anything else but think, pretty much.
just want to put something here, hopefully. So like, we have this idea of what thinking is that humans do, and we have it
Yeah.
on somewhat of the pedestal, but it's actually a fairly mathematical process that can be processed and emulated very well, to where the things where it's like, it could be so efficient that you don't have to think or express it as, well, I was thinking of a new plant. It's like, no, here's 40 new plants that I just came up with. Like, these are all awesome. I'm coming with a billion of them every millisecond.
It's
because I love
processing,
making plants.
comparing,
right.
and producing, and which is all things that computers do well.
Yeah,
Yes,
like a neural
exactly,
network
and that's
is
kind of
mapped
the
off
point.
the way how we think anyway.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. Is like, you know, all these chat boxes rely on prompts to do the things that they do.
Yeah.
What would be really interesting is if you woke up one morning and there was this new piece of work that had not been prompted in any way, shape, or form, and then that being the responsibility of an AI.
Oh, well, Boudreaux would argue with that. That's not even free will. Because none of our thoughts are
Well,
spontaneous in a weird way anyway.
Well, when you think about all the art, the original creations, like on the Sistine Chapel ceiling, well, they were prompted by the church. You know, they told
Right.
Michelangelo, paint this, paint that. These are the scenes we want. So, you know, those are original compositions, but he did them, you know, after being
True
prompted.
enough. I guess
Boudreaux,
there's
what do you
that.
got?
So your free will comment always sparks ideas for me.
Of course.
It'd be really interesting to quiz a chatbot to say, give me a random movie, and they could very easily tap into a movie database and pick a movie at random. Don't you
Right.
think that it would be pretty obvious if you asked for 10 random movies from us, from humans, even us on the call, versus a chatbot? Wouldn't you get a very different sampling of movies? I mean, I would
I
think
would argue that Yeah, I'd argue the
Yeah.
chatbot would be even more random than mine because mine would just
Well,
be like
definitely would be more
Mark.
random. But our picks, because of our lack of free will, I think,
Right.
would be they would all kind of like tie to. They would be recent movies, or they would be really popular movies, or they would
Marvel
be
movies. Yep.
Marvel.
Ones that really appeal to you.
Yeah,
Right.
I am not gonna suggest a movie I've never heard of.
Right.
I can't.
But a
That
chatbot might.
one. But the chatbot might. So I bet if you did some kind of a distribution of like the popularity or the star rating or whatever or the gross income, the gross whatever the movie collected, I guarantee that the chatbot would have a much lower score on popularity or whatever versus. So there's your Turing test right there. Just
Right.
ask them for a random movie.
I mean,
Box
it used to be
office
the case where
receipts
people-
that you were thinking.
It used to be the
There
case
you
where
go.
people would say you can never beat a human being at chess because chess is this, really abstract sort of conversation between two very brilliant forward thinkers who can like plan things ahead. It's like no, like there's a way to meticulously design objectives in chess to where you can say, I think these moves are better, and I'm going to just try to make the best move each time. And now we have computers on my phone that can beat me or grandmasters, right? And that's really useful because it can train grandmasters. So like, it didn't ruin chess; it just made people better at chess players because now there's a higher standard. I feel like chatbot and like these art programs are just going to do the same thing. They'll inspire more things from people, but they'll also make people understand that the way how we understand things can be understood, and that is a very useful thing because now we don't rely on mysticism or religion or spiritualism to explain that to us. Now we know the process and we can now find the best process to educate children and train ourselves at new cool things that we want to learn. Like this is a benefit if we just understand that everything we do in here can be fairly well understood and if anything done better. And I think that's a cool thing. John Richards, I think you had a comment?
Yeah, well, you've moved on. But
Sorry, buddy.
it was about these illustrator programs because a friend of mine is a drummer in a heavy metal band and he uses it to design their album covers. And it's so fascinating how many you put in a few prompts and like, I don't know, a devil's fork or something. And it comes up with 40 different examples in 3 seconds. And he spends hours through into the early morning trying to decide which one of these wonderful designs is the best.
Right. I'll also throw one last thing out before we close the show. I enjoy drawing. And the fact that there's a computer that can make art doesn't take away the value that I put into the practice of drawing. In the same way that there are people who love writing. And the fact that there's a program that can write poems too doesn't take away any joy that person can get from it. I just think we are going to evolve to where we appreciate the things that we love to do more versus doing them to necessarily gain or profit or a notoriety or an audience or things like that. When we have robots capable of doing routine tasks for us and that expansion, the routine expands, then more people will have more time to enjoy the things that they love to do because we have the basic needs being met through automation. And I think that is generally a really good goal, the improvement of society through letting robots do what they want to do. And then it's a question of what can we do to make the robots enjoy what they're doing before the robot wars start. All right, guys, Dread Pirate, where can we find your stuff at?
You can find me on YouTube at MindPirate, MindPyrate. I live stream this at 7 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And then later do the views on the news at 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings, PST.
Dread Pirate, one little last note. I would say you should always plug your show as PYRATE, right? It's right there
Great.
for you. Boudreaux, something that you'd recommend we check out before next week?
Oh, what would I recommend? I was going to recommend to the AI people to program their bots to sort movies by box office results and then randomly select from there. So then we now they can pass the Turing test. So I think we solved that problem. So
Very cool. My random little thing is they make vacuum robots now that have little AIs guys in them that will now, instead of just smearing dog poop all over your carpet, like look at it and be like, hey, I think that's dog poop. It's an amorphous shape. I'm going to put that into my category catalog and use my neural network to recognize what everything's are in your home.
Wow.
You could get that. You could not get that. I just don't have a dog. It saved me. Get a cat with a litter box. You'll solve yourself a lot of problems. John Richards, what's up?
Well, does it come out with a little dustpan and brush and scoop up the dog?
Like the Jetsons, right?
Yes.
it vaporizes it.
Vaporizes. Yeah.
It has my robot has lasers on it. It's kind of interesting. John.
Yeah, Freethought channel. That's where to go. And I strongly recommend this for Freethought hour chat I had yesterday with Alan Colquhoun. And yes, views on the news later on today. And the sad news is that one of our panelists, Frank Lovell, is no longer with us.
He's with the noodly one.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear.
Better five. Anything you'd like to close out the show with?
Well, yeah. We were getting back to the subject originally was cognitive dissonance and irrational dichotomies of thought. On my website, digitalfreethought.com, if you click on the blog button, I have an article there called Irrational Dichotomies of Religious Thought. And I recommend, if you'd like to know more about that, to go there and read that. What else? I have a book on atheism that's available on Amazon. Thank you, Dred, for holding it up. I appreciate that. It's called Atheism, What's It All About? And I take the articles from my website and put them in the book. So it's a book of articles about the subject of atheism. My YouTube handle is @Doubter5. I have a lot of content on there as well as animated. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on WOZO Radio. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Later.
That's a good show, everybody.
Okay. Yeah,
Fun.
thank you. I think it was really good.
Good
You
show.
know, Lo Ma was on here, and he asked the question, can Chat GPT lie?
Ooh.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Well,
Yeah.
no, my problem is, will it believe lies? And it probably will.
That's even scarier. I love that.
What happened to the first AI where you read the Bible to it?
Yeah, they'll be like,
Yeah, right.
Ty, will that little icon trick pick up the middle finger?
you want me to try it out? I don't know.
I think you should.
Okay. I think it only does those two hand gestures, but there's other filters. I have a Snapchat filter that can do alphabets, so you can spell, and it'll put the letters up there for you on the screen, which I find to be really, really cool.
Interesting.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
Check out
thank
that
y'all.
AI Chat GPT. You'd have
Yeah.